No one will enter heaven unless they are Christ-like. Psalm 1 is telling us, no one can ever enter heaven unless we are Christ-like. If anyone comes to you and says that with your deeds and with your sacrifices and with your hard work, you can make it, well, the law will say this to you. Yes, theoretically speaking, yes, you can make it. However, if you can get 100 out of 100 in God's law, if you sit in an exam, God's exam, and you get 100 out of 100, then you can enter heaven with your own hard work. But can anyone fulfill God's law in its perfection? That is the question. You need to be like the man. Blessed is the man. Can we have the verse on the screen, please? Blessed is the man. Can you be like this man, the man? Well, in James, the Epistle of James, chapter 2, verse 10, he says, for whoever shall keep the whole law and yet stumble in one point, he is guilty of all. In other words, what St. James is saying, if you sit an exam, in God's exam, and you get 99.9999 out of 100, God will give you 0. It is either 100 or it's nothing with God. Because God is perfect, He will never allow anything enter His presence unless it is perfect like Him. So 99.999 is not a perfect number. The perfect number that will get you to heaven is 100 out of 100. So unless you get 100 out of 100, you can never make it. No human being can ever fulfill God's law in its totality. We all failed. God gave us 10 commandments through Moses. We miserably failed in all of them. In all of them. Someone might come and say, well, one of the commandments says do not kill. I never killed anyone. Really? Maybe you didn't kill somebody physically, but you've killed somebody mentally, emotionally. What about your gossip? Talking behind people's back, stabbing them in the back. That is called murder. That applies to the commandment. You are now a killer in the sight of God. Gossiping. So I didn't kill him with a bullet, but I killed him with a word. So there is the physical murder and there is the spiritual murder. It all falls under do not kill. All of us failed, my beloved. If 10 commandments we were not able to fulfill, how can we fulfill the fullness of God's law? It's impossible, my beloved. It is impossible. Therefore, no one can make it to heaven. This is why the grain of wheat came, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Since God the Father wanted children, and God the Father realized these children, even if He make them, they won't be able to get back to Him because they will not be the perfect ones He intended for them to be. That's why He sent His beloved Son, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, to be that grain of wheat that was buried into the ground, died, and through death, God the Father gave birth through His beloved Son. His death gave birth to many children who believed in Him. Are you with me? To fulfill the fullness of the law of God on our behalf. That's why Jesus came, to fulfill the fullness of God's law on our behalf where we failed. Now, to fulfill the fullness of the law, I'll give you several biblical references that talks about Jesus fulfilling the law on our behalf. And it's just a few, just a very few of them. Read Matthew 5:17-18. Read Romans 8:3-4. Read Romans 10 verse 4. Read Galatians 3 verse 13. And Colossians chapter 2 verses 13-14. Just a few to name where Christ fulfilled the law on our behalf in order for us to get 100 out of 100. Christ came to pay our debt in full and fulfill the law of God in full. So when we say, blessed is the man, the very beginning of Psalm 1 and verse 1, blessed is the man. The word the means this is the man and there is no one else but him. Period. No prophet, no holy man, you whoever you want to bring. All humans are sinners and the wages of sin is death. Only one man was sinless, like God. This man is the man mentioned in Psalm 1:1. Blessed is the man. So when we say blessed is the man, then who will enter heaven? Jesus the man. Since he is the only one perfect, the only one who fulfilled God's law, then he is the only man that will enter heaven. Then the question is, what about me? Well, if Jesus is the only one who fulfilled the law, therefore he's able to enter heaven, then what about me? What will happen to me? Well, you want to enter heaven? You need to cancel yourself and enter through Christ. You need to cancel yourself and enter through Christ. Look at St. Paul, understood it. Galatians 2:20, St. Paul is saying, it is no longer I who live. I canceled myself. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. You want to enter heaven? It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. In our terminology, in our simple English, stop being stubborn and doing things your way. Stop going downtown. Stop going here and there and so-called having fun. Stop doing it your way, because Christ purchased you with his own precious blood. You no longer belong to yourself. You belong to him. And the only way to enter heaven, you need to be perfect as God. And the only man that is perfect as God is Christ the King. Therefore, you want to enter with Jesus to heaven, you better live for him, no more for yourself. As a Christian, we cannot be worldly. My son, my daughter, don't ever fight for materialistic things. I see so sadly, even in marriages, they became materialistic. Even in baptisms, they became materialistic. We've introduced materialism, which is the world. We brought it into the church and we made the church worldly. And Christ established the church to change the world into heavenly. When as Christians fight over a diamond ring, fight over a house, fight over a block of land, fight over clothing, fight over a car, fight over money, we haven't lived Christ yet. We haven't. Christianity is not a story being told. Christianity is not a song being sang. Christianity is not an eloquent preach given. Christianity is Christ being lived. Christ needs to be lived, not talked about. It's so easy to talk about the Lord, yet so hard to live the Lord. That is why many talk about the Lord, but only few live him. Only few. The Lord says, to enter God's kingdom, you need to be perfect like God. The only one who's perfect like God is Jesus the man. So the only one who's going to enter heaven out of the entire human race is Jesus. But God the Father wants many children. So therefore you need to die for yourself and live for Jesus Christ of Nazareth in order to enter heaven through him, by him, with him, and in him. That's the only way. Otherwise we are all going to die eventually anyway. And whatever we worked hard for will go astray. It'll be just a vanity. What a loss. What a great loss. If I don't have Jesus in my life, whatever I've gained on earth, even though I've worked hard for it, it is all